Hello, I'm Gavin Hoey and you're watching the Technique of the Month from Digital Photo Magazine. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create these rather nice analog retro light leak effects using nothing but the standard features inside either Photoshop Elements that I'm using here or Photoshop. Okay, let's close this down and go right back to the beginning because of course it starts with this image here and you'll find this image supplied along with this month's magazine. Now, the idea really here, I guess, is an image that would have that sort of vintagey kind of filmic look, and this is great. This is almost a timeless picture, Fiat 500 in Rome, absolutely perfect. But there's also got some areas around the outside where there's not much going on. There's this wall on the left and there's not much happening on the right either. So those are the areas I'm going to add in the light leak effects. Now, I could just apply them straight onto the image, but the chances are you're going to want to create these light leaks and then reuse them on other pictures. So let's make it on its own separate image that we can then apply to other images once it's been saved. Now to do that, I need a blank document. So let's go to File and then New and Blank File. Now here I'm going to set a few things up. I'll make sure that my units are set to pixels, which they are, and I'm going to put a width of 4500 and a height of 4500 pixels and just click OK. Now that's going to make a blank square white image. I actually want a black image, so I just need to flip it from white to black down to the keyboard. Control I on a PC, Command I on a Mac will flip your colors over, so now white becomes black. Now, before I apply my light leak to this image, I actually want to do it on its own separate layer. So let's go up to Layers on the menu and then choose New and Layer. I could give this a name, you don't have to. I'll call this Light. There we go. And that gives me a brand new blank layer. Now I'm going to make two different types of light leaks. We'll make a linear straight one in a little bit, but let's start with the more interesting one. The one that kind of has, isn't maybe sort of roundish, sort of oblongish kind of shape. And I'm going to make it on its own layer because it's just easier to do because I may need to move this around a little bit. And it's all done with nothing more than a standard paintbrush. Yep, the good old brush tool. So I'm going to get the brush tool and I'm going to come down to the size and make sure that the size is maximum, which here on side of Photoshop Elements is 2500 pixels. If you're using one of the newer versions of Photoshop, you can actually go bigger than that, but I think because we have an image that's 4500 square, 2500 for the brush size is about right. Now the color of the brush is important, and I'm going to start by changing the foreground color, which is currently black in my case. I'm just going to click on it and I'm just going to choose red. So there's a slider in the middle. I'll make sure that's right down at the bottom, and then I'm going to click and drag right up past the top right corner, and you see that my new color is now a really strong red. And I'll just click OK. Then I'm going to bring my cursor or my brush into the middle of the screen, and I'm going to click once, twice, and that puts a red blob on the black background. Okay, that's the first bit of this light leak, but light leaks are actually made up of a little rainbow effect of colors. So we're going to add in some extra colors. I'm going to click on the red as my foreground color. I'll come back to that slider in the middle and I'll move it up somewhere towards a sort of an orangey color. It's not an exact science, that's kind of half the fun of this. The brush size I'm going to reduce, so it was 2500, let's just bring it down to 2000 pixels, and I'll click once, twice in the middle. So now we have this sort of orange to red effect going on. Now I'm going to repeat this with a few other colours, so this time I'm going to choose a sort of yellowy colour, something like that. Again, I'll make my brush a little bit smaller, it was 2000, let's bring it down to 1500 pixels. Click once, twice in the middle, and finally one last colour. I'm going to choose white, which is right off the top left corner. That gives me a nice pure white with a much smaller brush, about 1000 pixels, and again 1, 2 clicks, and I end up with this rather nice gradient from red to orange to yellow. And because I'm randomly choosing the colors, there is a slight randomness to it. It's going to be slightly different every single time, and that's good. That's what we want. We want that kind of more organic, slightly random feel to things. However, there is a bit of a ringing effect, which you may see to a lesser or greater extent depending on the video itself. I'm going to get rid of some of that ringing by blurring this out. So let's go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian blur, and I'll just put it down to about 10 pixels or so, and we'll just put a little bit of blurring in there just to smooth and blend and get these colours to mix together slightly. Now remember, I put this on its own layer, and now the reason for that becomes much clearer because I can actually get that layer and I can move it around. I can also make multiple copies, which is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to get the layer and drag it onto the new layer icon, and that will make an exact copy, and I'll do that one more time so I end up with 3 exact copies. Now I'll just switch 2 of them off by clicking on their little eye icons on the layers panel, and we'll just deal with one at a time. Let's click on that layer so I'm actually active on the layer that's still visible. So I can move this around, and I really think this is going to work well on the right hand side, so I'm going to put it on the right here, and something like that looks okay. Kind of happy with that. Maybe you want to change the shape a little bit, and if I want to change the shape, I'm going to use free transform. Now, free transform, that's going to vary its position depending whether you're in Photoshop or Elements. In Elements, it's under Image, Transform, Free Transform. Photoshop is under Edit, Free Transform, but Control-T or Command-T on a Mac will work in both Photoshop and Elements, and it's a nice good one to remember. So we're just going to squidge this down a little bit, maybe stretch it out a little bit so we make it more of an oval like that. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so we have one bit there. Let's turn on one of the other layers, and we'll again, whoops, undo that, Control Z, make sure I'm working on the right layer. It's all part of the fun of layers. It's very easy to forget you've got to change layers, but you can see the reason I'm working on layers, I can get these to all interact with each other. That looks quite nice. Maybe we'll stretch that out a little bit longer. Let's again go up to Free Transform, and we'll just stretch that out a little bit more width-wise. Yeah, there we go. That looks pretty good. And we can even rotate it around a little bit. Yeah, I'm kind of happy with that. I think that'll do. I'll click on the green tick or press enter. And then finally, I'll come up to the top layer, click it to make it active, and we'll just pop a little bit up there. And I think maybe we'll just leave that as a circle. Yeah, that kind of feels quite nice. And you can put as many or as few of these as you like. It's all going to be different, and every single time will be slightly original. So once I've got that in place, I can then come up to my layers and choose to flatten the image. Now at this point, you've got to be sure because going back could be a bit more tricky, but I'm happy with that. So flatten that down. I've gone from 4 layers to 1, and now I can choose select and all, edit and copy, jump back to the main image. Yes, remember this, it seems ages ago, but that is the image we're going to add in the light leak, and I just paste it on. Edit and paste. Now, you're going to find that this is much bigger than the image. 4,500 pixels is great, but not all cameras, and you know, that can be quite large, and it's better to be big than small, I guess. So let's just make this a little bit smaller using Free Transform, which is still under Image, Transform, Free Transform, or Control-T, Command-T on a Mac. And I'm just going to size this down just so it kind of fits in, something like that, and I'll click on the tick. So that's fine, but obviously half the picture is covered by black. Now, there was a reason that I chose black as the background color, and the reason is really simple. I'm just going to change the blending mode. I'm going to change the blending mode to screen, and that does a couple of things. It gets rid of the black, that's fine, and it also helps to blend in some of these light leak areas as well. So that works really simply. Just change blending mode to screen. Job done. You may find, like I find, that maybe just reducing the opacity 85% or so just brings some of the original back through, and that feels really nice. Now, of course, you can free transform that even further if you want to make it bigger or smaller, but I'm kind of happy with that. Okay, so that's the nice kind of blobby one. What about a nice straight linear one? Well, those are very easy to make. So first of all, I'm just going to fill everything with black. Let's just go up to Edit, Fill selection using black. That's fine. Okay, we don't need the marching ants. Select and deselect those. Right, so this time you don't have to use layers because I'm only going to do a single straight line. I'm not going to duplicate it. If you are going to duplicate this in any way, shape or form, do it on layers, be safe. But if like me, you know this is going to be a one thing, then you're fine working on the black background. Now, first of all, we need to set those colors up just like I did before. Let's come down, right down to the bottom, right out to the top right corner, start with red. We'll get the paintbrush that we had earlier, and we'll start again with a nice big 2,500 sized paintbrush like this. And then I'm just going to draw a straight line straight down. Now if you hold shift, you'll go in a nice straight line. It won't go all wobbly left and right, although wobbly is quite nice sometimes. Okay, that's red. Let's do orange. And again, I'm going to reduce the size of my brush. So we were on 2500, we'll come down to 2000. And with orange, again, just go straight down through the middle. Same with yellow. And reduce the brush. Straight through the middle. And then finally white with a smaller brush. Straight down through the middle. Okay, so there we are. That is the light leak. Now, I can just go and get this all, select and all, edit and copy. Now, there's obviously a left and a right to this one, so when I paste it in, edit and paste, I'm going to end up with a kind of a weird thing there. Let's just change that blending mode to screen, because it does go straight through the middle. So if you want a light leak that goes through the center of your picture, that's how you do it. But I only want it to come in from the side, so I'm going to get the move tool and we'll just drag this over to the side, something like that. And I'll just lower the opacity a little bit, just a tiny hint down, so I can see some of the brickwork coming through. Now, the nice thing about these is they can be mixed together. So once you've done one or two, you don't have to just use them once. You can use them again. So if I come down to the middle layer, which was the first light leak we put on the right-hand side, I can make a copy of that layer. And I can either go to layer and duplicate the layer, or I can do what I did earlier, get the layer, drag it onto the new piece of paper, new layer icon, and I've got an exact copy that I can then change about. So if I go back to image, transform, and well, this time I'm actually not going to transform, I'm going to rotate it, and we'll just flip this horizontally. So we need to find flip layer horizontally. Photoshop users, you'll find this under edit and then transform, flip horizontal. So slightly different place. Let's get rotate and flip layer horizontal, but it does exactly the same thing. And I can just bring this over to the side and just fill in this side here where it was a bit white. I maybe wanted just a bit of color in there. And if I change it to a different blending mode, let's try linear dodge add, or even just lighter color. There we go, lighter color works well. I'm just getting a little hint of that color coming through, just to add in something there, and again make it feel a little bit more organic and a little bit more natural. Now, there's no limit to how far you can take this. You can put light leaks here, there and everywhere, or just limit it to one small corner. That's the joy of creating an analog style image. Whatever you think is right is right. Now, if you've enjoyed this technique but you want to take it even further, then you need to check out the Technique of the Month Extra. That's where I take the standard technique of the month and go the extra step. And this time what I'm going to do is we're going to give it a bit more of a sort of pale vignette around the outside. And I'm going to create some new light leak effects just for a border effect. But it has a very organic, natural edge to it as well, which really makes that feel and look far more analog. Now, to see how this is done, just follow the link and you'll be able to watch it for free and see previous episodes as well. I'm Gavin Hoey. Thanks for watching.